different platform. When I go on different platforms.
All right, button is pushed.
All right, well, we get ready to go live now. I know it's a little delay here.
Should be good now.
All righty. Peace and blessings, family. This is Brother Shareef and Ptah Shakur on the Hour of Power. We have another special guest tonight. We will start out with our universal prayer and get right into this much anticipated interview with our brother out of Philadelphia. All this math, I believe, is his motto. All right, in the name of God, the gracious, the merciful, we give him praise and thanks for his mercy and his goodness to the human family. If all the trees upon the earth were pens to write with, and if all the oceans were ink, and then another 7 oceans to add to its supply, the writing would still not be enough to explain the glory of God, for he's the gracious, the merciful. We confide in no other in our time of need, and we praise no other in our good fortune. He is one. And even if I lived to be 1,000, it would still not be enough to thank God for his many blessings and gifts. We thank God for the Metu Neter, oracles, scriptures, and writings that came on the continent of Africa thousands of years before any organized religion. We thank God for Moses in the Torah, Jesus in the Gospel, and Muhammad with the Quran. I greet everyone in words of peace. To my Christian family, praise the Lord. To my Muslim family, assalamu alaikum. To my Hebrew Israelite family, shalom. To my Black conscious family, hotep. To my Native American family, halito. And to the people in the streets, what's good to you? It all means peace. So once again, we're here with God's grace with another episode of the Hour of Power. Got a special guest. Introduce yourself, my brother.
So thanks for having me on. I'm a math teacher, a father. I have 3 children, and they heavily influence my teaching styles and my approaches. And I'm been teaching math for 20 years, right? And been in Philadelphia, working at different charter schools, some different traditional public schools, and I also started my company, All This Math, as a means of expanding my reach and being able to, really reach more and more students than just the students that happen to have been in classrooms assigned to me in the different, schools that I've taught in. So started All This Math back in 2017. Started out, doing, math tutoring in person, and then during the pandemic, it switched to virtual math tutoring, and then from there, we started the YouTube channel, which is a resource for the community. Currently have over 7,000 subscribers, with almost 900 videos on topics ranging from arithmetic up to calculus. So, yeah, and then, there's also like the book that I published back in 2023, which is another resource for parents, which is meant to help the parents prepare their children for math class instead of just sending their children to school to be fully taught by, the teachers in that institution, right? And the children are going in there cold, without enough like prior preparation, because I'm of the opinion that school should be a space for practice for our children, right? As opposed to primary education, since we don't control the schools. And also, we should have a goal of our children seeing the topics in the curriculum. When they get to school, they should be seeing them for the second time, if not the third time, right? So that's why I create the resources, because it's nice and it's cute to say that, right? But you got to provide the community with resources to make that a reality. So that's, kind of in a nutshell who I am: math educator, father, entrepreneur, YouTuber, teaching math on YouTube,
Mm-hmm. What made you or directed you to specifically to educate our people with math? What led you to that particular subject?
Well, math teachers are in high demand. Back in 2005, actually 20 years ago. 20 years ago, in the month of March 2005, I took on a opportunity as a long-term substitute teacher in geometry in a charter school in North Philly. And then I just decided to stay with that and get a full-time teacher position that following fall at another charter school closer to South Philly. And, math teachers are in high demand. And being a black man as a math teacher, that's also on even more high demand. And it was an economic necessity because I had a child on the way. So I just left my previous job and I needed a new job. So that's basically what led me to lab math initially. Now, what caused me to stay teaching math and remain in the field of mathematics was me doing a lot of reading of African American history, political science, psychology, and just understanding the importance of analytical reasoning and critical thinking, right? And how it could be a tool of liberation for our people. So it just made me want to just stay and continue to be not only a teacher of math, but a student of math myself. And one of the best ways, to learn something is to teach it. So I wanted to constantly become sharper and sharper with mathematics. And also, as I would read and, study different areas of mathematics, I would kind of gain more understanding and see connections between our experience, in terms of, African people of African descent, and also a lot of the concepts and the topics within math. So I'm like, I started to believe, and I've seen this, through my studies of math, that a lot of our conditions and a lot of our situations and circumstances can be modeled by different mathematical concepts and mathematical topics. So it makes me just want to study even higher level math that I've yet to reach as of now. But so that's how I got into math education, I should say, and that is also why I stayed. 'Cause a lot of people don't stay. It's like a lot of like they say, many are called, but the chosen a few. Fortunate for me, I was chosen. That's how I look at it.
Was that something in your household as you grew up that was important, or you picked up on the importance in your adulthood, like you just explained?
Well, education was important in my household. My father was an educator. Growing up, my father's still an educator. He's been teaching for over 40 years.
Wow.
So growing up, I had that example. Education was always stressed, not only by him, but also by my mother as well. In fact, for a year, I was homeschooled by my mother, during my elementary years. So both of my parents, instilled the importance of education, not just my parents, but, other more distant relatives as well. And, math, a lot of people often ask me, when did I love math, or how did I develop a love for math? When I was young, I really didn't love math. I like getting good grades. That's what I appreciated. And doing well in math was a byproduct. It was a means to an end, because I just wanted the good grades. That's what I wanted. I developed a love for math many years later as an adult, and I want people to understand this, when I started to learn what people call the new math, or the Common Core math. When I learned that, that's when I developed a love for math, because the math started to make more sense.
Can you explain that a little more, brother? The new math, because I'm not well versed in that. I've heard that term, but I'm not well versed in it. If you can explain that a little more.
So you'll hear a lot of complaints, from some parents, and I think some of them are viable. They're viable complaints. They're just complaints, because school districts years ago rolled out a new math curriculum, and course sequencing, and different methods of teaching the mathematics that were not similar, not identical to the way we may have learned, the way I learned in the 1980s when I was in elementary school, or the early 1990s when I was in middle school, right? Some different methods, right? But, often people kind of fear what they don't understand, and they're resistant to change often. So, and it wasn't taught to the parents, and often it also wasn't necessarily taught well to the teachers. So the teachers were often not as effective with teaching these new methods and these different methods to our young people. However, these different methods are meant to provide an understanding of the concept of mathematics, as opposed to just giving people formulas and algorithms to memorize and steps to memorize so they can just get the answer without any understanding of how we get from the original problem to the answer, really.
Okay.
Right? When you understand the concept behind the mathematics, that inspires you to be creative. You understand the connections between numbers and the relationships between numbers. Then you can leverage that and become an inventor, become a developer, become a person that can really go into engineering. You can really become a person that can solve problems for the Black community, right? Only knowing, the quadratic formula and algebra, but not really understanding the intimate details of the quadratic formula, you can't really apply the quadratic formula in a lot of cases. You can't apply the principles of it to other areas of life, right? With the so-called new math, which really, I use the air quotes because it really shouldn't be called new. It's just different, because a lot of these methods are methods that our ancestors were using 6,000 years ago. This is documented. In ancient Kemet, a lot of these methods that are being taught on the elementary school level, our ancestors in ancient Kemet were using to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and whatnot. So when people hear people say new math, they're saying it out of frustration because it's a different method of doing arithmetic, of doing calculations. But what it's meant to do is also help prepare children for algebra, right? By training them to think in a certain way, right? How to think, right? So that way when they get to algebra, they won't be like a lot of students which say, I used to like math in elementary school, but then when they put letters in it, I didn't like it no more. So, but the Common Core math has to be taught properly. And I was put in a position back in 2019 where I had to teach Common Core math or Common Core math methods to education majors at Cheney University. When I started teaching as an adjunct at Cheney University, well, actually before that, because I was teaching at LaSalle University in Philly as of 2018. So that's when I really started to get introduced to the Common Core math. And because I had to teach it, I had to learn it. And I was resistant to it as well, just like a lot of people are. But I really kind of locked in and decided to learn it. And once I learned it, that's when I started to develop a love for math, because then all those algorithms and everything that I learned when I was in elementary school and even middle school and whatnot, they started to make sense, because I'm like, oh, that's why you do that. Oh, that's why long division works. Oh, that's why you got to indent when you do the multiplication algorithm. Every line you go down, you got to move in one space, or put a zero at the end of the line, end of the sequence of numbers. Oh, that's why. A lot of times when you just giving kids just algorithms and step by step processes without no context, without any context, and you're not really telling them why it works or really how it works, it also makes it more difficult for them to really understand it and even memorize those processes anyway. And it also it doesn't provide a story. It keeps the math real abstract. And when the math is real abstract, it seems irrelevant. And that's why a lot of children will respond by saying things like, when am I going to use this? Why do I need to know this? How's this going to help me in life? Well, it's because you don't understand the concept of the numbers. Because if you really understand the concept of the numbers, you'd be able to see for yourself, oh, I can apply this when I'm in the house doing this. I can apply this when I'm playing a video game. I can apply this when I'm playing sports. I can apply this when I'm making some food, But so that's what the so-called new math is supposed to do. But herein lies the challenge. The teachers have to be trained themselves very effectively and have to have enough experience to be able to deliver it that way, right? And oftentimes that's not the case.
I have a quick question for you. This is just my experience, but it can't just be my experience. When I was coming up, we would have different math problems, but the problem came in is when they were in word problems. You know what I mean? And then it was revealed that many of us couldn't read. So how are we going to solve a math problem that's in, a small paragraph if you can't read? Have you experienced that?
Definitely. I've told students all the time. I still tell students to this day, you have to read first, then you do math. Oftentimes a lot of reading issues get shielded or get masked and presented as math deficiencies, when there are a lot of students that you can give them an equation to solve and they would have no issue with solving the equation because they know the steps of how to do that. But if you give them a word problem that requires them to read the word problem, comprehend the word problem, interpret it, and then translate the word problem into that same equation, they wouldn't be able to do the translation. They wouldn't be able to necessarily comprehend the word problem, the paragraph, or the few sentences or what have you. in order to make that happen. They wouldn't be able to do that. So that's also something. So I think the reading deficiency goes hand in hand with the math deficiency sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely an issue. And I think that's always been an issue.
Wow. And like I said, back in the day, I just remember, an equation. But when the word problem came in, I didn't have a problem, but a lot of my classmates or comrades in the city school, because I always went to Catholic school, and I just had to be honest, they weren't having that there. People was able, the students were able to read. It's the city schools that had a lot of problems with reading. People in 8th grade, they reading on a 3rd grade level, and then they start talking about the school to prison pipeline and all that. It's just a major problem. And like you said, it's still a problem today. Do you think that's why many of our people and Latinos and poor whites or whatever you want to call it, is that why they're intimidated by math? Because I was intimidated by math, and I could read. It's just I was intimidated by it.
Well, that has a lot to do with the way that it's taught. It's taught in a way that would make you intimidated by it. Often math is presented, even today and much so in the past, as a weed out process, where it's not really inclusive. It's not meant to be inclusive. It's not meant to be for everybody, right? So, and especially when you think about I often think about students that go to special admission schools, magnet schools, and whatnot. Oftentimes, those teachers often are not held accountable for their teaching methods and their instructional methods, because if students do poorly, then it's most often going to be blamed on this idea that the student can't handle the rigor, and this teacher's teaching style or instructional delivery is never called into question. Right? So it's a way for them to never be held accountable, essentially. Right? Yeah, that's definitely one thing. But I mean, it's a requirement. It's a necessity. If everybody could, I'm often in different places and I look at, the type of employment that people have or the type of employment that people qualify for, right? A lot of people work certain positions because they need to make money. They need to provide food, clothing, and shelter for themselves and their family, right? But they can only do what they qualify for. So mathematics is really a barrier. It's a gatekeeper. It's a gateway, but it's also a gatekeeper. So if you systematically, it's a way to maintain labor dynamics in a certain way. Because if you teach everybody calculus, then who would do certain jobs? Who would do certain menial labor? Like Du Bois talked about in his writing. Who would be the hewers of wood and the drawers of water? Who would do that work? If I know calculus and I'm going to college and I'm gonna go get the more high paying job, the more skilled profession, which is something that we really need to be thinking about even more now with the advent and the proliferation of artificial intelligence, machine learning, because this technology is going to eliminate a lot of those menial labor jobs, right? A lot of the gig economy jobs, right? But it's also going to create other jobs. But the jobs that are created, they're only going to be available to people with a strong math background. So parents need to be scared and they need to let that fear motivate them to develop a sense of urgency around making sure that their children have strong math skills. And I'm not even just talking about making sure that their children are on grade level, because that's arbitrary. I don't even really know what that means. Like, what does that mean? Like, if I got a child in 5th grade and they're on grade level at 5th grade, they can do 5th grade math. I don't know what 5th grade math is. Like, what does that even mean? All that is arbitrary. Some white man somewhere, or a group of white people sitting in a room somewhere deciding, oh, this is 5th grade math. Says who? Like, you in 5th grade, you like 10 years old. Like, who's to say that you only need to know this much math?
Right.
Why can't you know more? Right?
You
know what I'm saying? So it's like, and a lot of times we buy into the grade level thing. I mean, it's a goal, a target per se, if your child is below grade level, right? But what if your child is at grade level? Does that mean your child can chill? Does that mean that, they're in a good space? They're probably not. Probably still not. Because, like I say, the curriculum that the school districts, which we don't control, right, are just a suggestion. So we should always be aiming to like move way past that, you know. So yeah, these are definitely things we got to think of. So yeah, so yes, I do want to say that again. Like we have to develop a sense of urgency, and whereas we are reorganizing and reconfiguring our lives to make sure our children are advanced in mathematics because it's really that serious. I mean, it's been that serious,
sure.
Right? It's been that serious, but oftentimes what happens is children that end up matriculating through public school, charter schools, even sometimes in private school, if they don't excel, they're able to still secure employment. Right. So people look at it like, I turned out fine. I was never good at math. I turned out fine. It ain't going to be like that in the future.
Yes, sir.
And I'm trying to let people understand this. This is not a game.
My brother Ptah has a quick question or comment.
Right.
I'm just going to jump in. Just remind everybody who's watching this. This is coming out live on the Right Rose Community Channel 16 and 18, as well as this is going out over Facebook as well. And then later on, it will be downloaded to YouTube. This is the Hour of Power broadcast every Wednesday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. This is the program for the community, for you to reach out to us. We want to hear what's on your mind, whether you have a business venture, if you have something to offer the community in the form of, we need some success stories. We need some good programming, something that inspires everybody, it educates, and so that's what this program is about. If you want to jump on the program, reach out to Brother Shareef or myself. But what we're speaking about today is a wonderful educator, Brother Akil Parker. It's all this math, and this is a question I kind of want to pose to you. Me being a former youth educator, so I've been that individual to help young people with their homework. So I've been down that road, and so when I did hear that idea about a new math pop up, I did kind of hit that old Clint Eastwood kind of get off my lawn type of mindset. Like it sounded kind of scary, so to speak. But the way that you kind of shared it with me, you should probably do commercials for it. You really kind of got me to open my mind up, and so I'm actually going to check that out myself. Because you're right, a lot of parents, they were asking me, and I consider myself a mathematical, I love math. Like I said, growing up, that was my thing as well. And just like Shareef was sharing, as far as learning how to do those word problems and things, that is something that really affects us. And so thank you for bringing that idea about the Common Core math out. So I think that is something that we all need to be focused in on. So just want to give you your flowers on that. And I'm just kind of like listening in, and any questions I'll make sure I pose to you. But I just wanted to just give you your flowers for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think something else, I want to also thank you again for, Shareef, sharing your platform with me, because one of the things that we have to do as a community is change the narrative and the propaganda around mathematics. Because usually in the Black community, we talk about math, but typically it's a negative conversation. It's always a negative conversation about math. It's typically somebody saying how, people trauma bonding about their negative experiences, whether it was in elementary school, middle school, or high school, or people talking about how it was too hard, too difficult, how they never needed it. It's people always trash math and throw it under the bus, right? We need to start having more positive conversations around math, so young people, because a lot of adults are having these conversations, and then the children are somewhere hearing this.
Yes, sir.
They're inheriting the fear of mathematics from their parents, from their grandparents, from their aunties and their uncles. And don't let it be your favorite uncle. Because once your favorite uncle or your favorite auntie say, I was never good at math, that's all you need right there. That's your justification. Well, what I need math for? Auntie so-and-so ain't good at math. And look at her house. Look at her car. Look where she live at. Look, she be taking trips and hanging out and doing this and that, right? My uncle so-and-so, he be doing this, doing that. Got a nice house, got a nice car. He, got women or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, he wasn't good at math neither. So I can be just like them, right? You know what I'm saying? So there's so much negative propaganda around mathematics. We gotta start having more positive conversations around math and start highlighting the people that did excel in math, and the Black people that did become engineers and computer scientists, and even people that became lawyers, because in law school you got to study logic. Logic is a subset of geometry. So when you was in 10th grade taking geometry, or in 9th grade taking geometry, when you was doing geometric proofs, you were learning how to problem solve. You were learning how to form a coherent and cogent argument, which is something that so many people nowadays, even in the past, but I think it's even more prevalent now, cannot do. All you got to do is go on social media. Like you see, people cannot go from point A to point B and form a coherent and cogent argument. Geometry can teach you to do that. A lot of us get caught up in the shapes, and they say, "Oh, what I care about triangles for? What I care about polygons and trapezoids and all that for? I don't want to be an interior decorator. Why would I care about that?" It's like, bro, you're missing it. That's only surface level. When you get deeper into it, you'll learn. Like if I say, "Okay, prove that this is a triangle," right? You say, "Well, it's got three sides. It's got to be a triangle." Nah, it's deeper than that. Think about how often we are lied to as a people. Right? Somebody will come through and tell you, "Look, this is what this is." Right? Or this is going to be an improvement in your community, and then you just accept it because you want to, or you feel like they're telling you the truth. But when you do actual analysis and say, "Okay, well, you're telling me this is good for my community. Let's look at what the outcome is going to be. Number one is this. Number two is this. Number three is this. Well, these things don't look like they're good for my community." Right?
Yes,
so
sir.
then how you telling me that this is going to be good for my community? You do the same thing in geometry class when I ask you, is this a triangle? Right? You got to go through the rules. Okay, what's the definition of a triangle? What are the criteria? Okay, is it a right triangle? Are we using the Pythagorean theorem? So-called Pythagorean theorem, because Pythagoras studied in ancient Kemet for 22 years. You learned that from our ancestors, right? You know what I'm saying? So all of that, right? Is this the truth? Right? So the geometry, just like algebra, just like, pre-calculus, calculus, it teaches us to be able to find what the truth is, right? In a systematic way and a methodical way, right? When so many of us lack that. So with the math, something I wanted to also get into in this conversation is having us understand what math really is. Math is really a means of problem solving and a tool for developing the skill of having critical thinking, right? Because people often talk about, well, kids should have a critical thinking class. I'm like, I hear that, and I'm like, I'm all for that. But they already have critical thinking classes. The math has to be taught properly. If you teach the math in a proper way, they'll be trained to be critical thinkers, right? They'll be trained to develop discernment. Because that's all we do in math. It's like any equation you give to a student, give to a mathematician, we're constantly thinking, does the left side equal the right side? Because if I see that equal sign right there, that means that the value of the left side of the equation must be the same as the value of the right side, even if the numbers are totally different. Because then you start thinking about, well, what's the relationship between the numbers? Because somebody could tell me 6 times 3, right, is equal to 9 times 2, right? And that's a true statement, right? Because those expressions are both equal to 18. But somebody that don't know no better say, well, nah, that ain't the same. 6 ain't the same as 9. 3 ain't the same as 2. That approximates what a lot of people do because we don't understand relationships. We don't understand algebra, right? And then we have, as children, we may not have been exposed to positive and appropriate instructional methods. So we have a negative taste in our mouth from our experience. And then we allow our children to hear us speak negatively about the mathematics. And then they inherit that negative disposition before they even had a chance to really embrace it, So again, it's of the utmost importance to have these positive conversations around math because it's a marketing issue. It's really a marketing issue. At the end of the day,
I like what you just mentioned about having positive conversations because the only conversations I've had growing up and even now about math is drug dealers got to know math.
Truth. Kilo and
kilo and other than that,
when Biggie had that song, the crack commandments, the 10 crack commandments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, other than that, I've never heard anyone in our community really talk about the importance of math other than the math that they do drug dealing.
And that's just arithmetic. I mean, it's important. Arithmetic is very important. I would say that we should as a community, we should put in schools across this whole society should put more of an emphasis on arithmetic. And we as adults should go back and either revisit or learn for the first time a lot of the arithmetic that we never learned when we were young. Because that's the foundation for the algebra, that's the foundation for the geometry, the foundation for the statistics, which then the statistics is so important because the statistics, if we look at like descriptive statistics, inferential statistics, and we really look into like the different rules and topics and concepts within statistics. A lot of the anti-blackness, a lot of the you know, the promotion of black pathology, you know, and these ideas that we have, you know, about, you know, black people do this and black people are like this and black men are like this and black women are like this. All that stuff will go out the window because it does not stand up to statistical scrutiny. Almost none of it does. It's all conjecture and nonsense, right? But because we generally don't have an understanding of mathematics, we have a fear of and a discomfort around mathematics, then we never get into the statistics, which would disprove and debunk a lot of stuff that has been, a lot of these things that we see on social media. But before they was on social media, they was being spread around the community, uncontested, right? All these ideas, people have, a person can have an individual experience and then try to superimpose it and project it and say, look, this is what all black people do. No, it's not. Maybe not even 10% of black people do this,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Statistics is a branch of mathematics that enables you to test hypothesis. Like, okay, all right, cool. You want to put that negative propaganda out there. You want to put that idea out there about what all black men do or what all black women do. Cool. Let's test your hypothesis. Let's have at it. Let's get it. Like, you know what I mean? But
Right.
in the absence of understanding statistical methods, right, you can't do that. You can't do that. And then everybody's, you know, people just rely on, well, I feel like, you know, this is how it is. It's like, nah, but that ain't how it is. I don't care if you feel like that's how it is. This ain't how it is. And we can use mathematics as a tool to disprove a lot of this stuff, you know, that just floats around so freely in our community, you know. But I definitely think we should revisit arithmetic. Arithmetic is key. The addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and just the different methods of doing the addition, and even understanding, like, why do you carry the one when we was adding them numbers in elementary school? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
You know, and then some alternative methods, you know, like doing the subtraction, where we regroup or borrow. Some people call it borrowing, but we really shouldn't call it that because technically it ain't that. Really, it's regrouping, right? It's like taking money from one pocket and putting it in another pocket in the same pair of pants. It's still your money, right? You know what I'm saying? But, you know, there are still other methods of doing subtraction, right? And also being able to do something in multiple ways, it helps with your fluency. It helps you to gain a grasp of mathematics. And there's a term that we educators like to use, automaticity. Right, it becomes more automatic. You know, you develop your muscle memory, what I call the mathematical muscle memory. You know, much more easily. You know, just from using different methods. You know, similar to sports. You know, similar to sports. You know, you run different plays. You know, and you become a better player because you run a different plays. You do different calisthenics, different exercises. Right, you become more skilled. Right, you know, so math is very similar to that.
You had mentioned earlier about the teachers need to be taught. What is it that is there something across the board that they go to school for that's across the board? And what would you suggest and resources of how math is being taught so that children can be more, you know, proficient in math?
I think there should be. I think during undergrad, there should be more math courses required.
Okay.
Maybe not. I may not go so far as to say that if a person wants to be an elementary school teacher, that they should have a math degree or even a math minor, but there should be more coursework.
Okay.
In some programs, some education programs, you may only have to take 2 math courses, right? And they're really pedagogical. They're pedagogical courses, right? So the problem.
They're what kind of courses?
The pedagogical courses, meaning courses that are meant to teach you how to teach.
Okay.
Right? As opposed to focusing just on content.
Yes, sir.
But herein lies the problem. If you don't already have the content mastered, then I can't teach you how to teach the content if you don't already, like, I can't really teach you how to add fractions with different denominators if you don't already know how to add fractions with different denominators yourself.
Right.
So then that takes away from the actual aim of the course, right? And that happens a lot because you got young people that are very well-meaning, care about the youth, care about the community, want to make a positive impact, right? Want to make a positive impact and all that, but they don't have a lot of math skills, right? Because they don't have a lot of math skills, they say, all right, well, this is what they do. This is a very erroneous thing that they do. They say, all right, well, look, I'm gonna teach kindergarten or I'm gonna teach first grade, and their rationale is that, well, I don't have to know a lot of math to teach that level, and that's false. You do need to know a lot of math, because when we think about teaching a 5-year-old that's in kindergarten or a 6-year-old that's in first grade, we need to be thinking about teaching them addition, subtraction, teaching them the numbers, the number sense and whatnot, introducing the number line and all that, with the idea that one day that child will be in a calculus class. One day that child might be taking differential equations one day, right? I'm not saying you necessarily need to have mastered calculus yourself if you're that kindergarten teacher or the first grade teacher, but you at least need to have some comfort with it and some understanding of it, right? Because maybe during your lesson, that's going to influence your lesson, just like with parenting, right? I got a 19-year-old son. I got a 13-year-old daughter. I got a 5-year-old son. As I have raised them when they were babies, I wasn't thinking, oh, well, she's 1 right now. I'm only focused on what she's going to do when she's 1. No, I'm raising her as a 1-year-old, interacting with her as a father to my 1-year-old daughter with the idea that one day she's going to be 25. One day she's going to be 40. My son that's 19, I'm interacting with him when he's 1 and 2, thinking, okay, one day he's going to be 19. This is a long game. This is protracted, right? Human development is protracted. So just like with parenting, education should be the same way. It shouldn't just be like, well, the curriculum only say this is first grade. I'm only responsible for teaching them, number bonds, how to do basic addition with numbers between 1 and 10, maybe a little subtraction, and that's it. Nah, they're gonna be adding and subtracting fractions one day. They're gonna be multiplying one day. They're gonna be doing long division one day. They're gonna be solving equations one day. They're gonna be graphing linear equations one day. They're gonna be graphing parabolas, all this other fly stuff, right? If you have an understanding of that yourself and a comfort with that, you might even introduce some of those concepts to the first grader. And like I said earlier, the school curriculum is only a suggestion. Because the first thing a lot of people do is, if they heard me just say that, like, what you mean you're going to introduce first graders to parabolas? What? That's high school math. So what? Mm-hmm. That's a suggestion. Who said it's high school math?
Right.
Who said our children can't do it when they're 6 years old?
Right.
Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these are the things you have to challenge. But if you go into that classroom, that first grade classroom, you're like, oh, I only know this much math. I'm only responsible for this, and you don't even have an understanding of the higher level stuff. You can't put them on to what they're gonna see down the road, because you can't, because you don't even possess the ability to do it. So, and I think that also it limits, not only because the teacher is limited, the children end up being limited.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The children end up being limited, and a lot of times you have teachers that are really uncomfortable with mathematics, but they're responsible for teaching it, and that discomfort transfers to the child.
Excuse me, Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker,
yeah.
Let my partner give the call-in number in case anyone wants to call in and ask you any questions.
Absolutely. So anybody who's watching in right now, we got a couple of responses on the Facebook comment, but you want to call in and pose a question or add to the conversation, the number 717-846-5067. Again, that number 717-846-5067.
All right. I think it's so important what you just mentioned now and earlier about, and my partner said the same thing about putting a ceiling on learning math. If you're why can't a third or fourth grader go above that? I remember my son, he lives in North Carolina. He's technically a sophomore in high school, but he's a sophomore in college right now. And he used to get bored just counting pennies and dimes when he was ready to do, algebra and, geometry and all that. He was getting bored, and it was limiting him when he was ready to go further. So that's so important. And you don't hear anyone saying be taught math or any other subject above their grade. That's shallow. But thank you for that.
Yeah, and we got to do it. We got to do it because and when we look at the larger context, you know, it's not a level playing field. You know, all things are not equal. Maybe all things being equal, we could kind of relax, go at a certain pace, a slower pace. But things are definitely not equal, and we're behind. We're playing catch up as a people, as a collective. You know, even on an individual basis, many of us are playing catch up. So we got to go harder. We got to do more. You know, and again, I want people to be motivated by the fear of the future and this need for mathematics, because for all too often we kind of just push it to the side. It's like in our mind, we like, yeah, I know my children need to be strong in math, but like, no, this is almost we got to start operating like, look, we got that 30-day eviction notice.
Yeah,
we got to come up with this rent money.
Yeah.
So you got to do what you got to do, right? It's 30 days. We got 30 days to get this $3,000.
Yeah.
Like, we got to make it happen. That's how we got to start looking at this, right? We don't look at it that way, right? Because again, in the past, it's like, oh, well, and then people, you know, say things like, well, I'm just not a math person or whatever. Like a math person is a person that is a human being and does math. And we do math all the time.
Right.
We do all types of calculations.
Right.
Right. And that's another thing that's very key as well. And this ties into understanding the definition of mathematics, which many of us don't really know because it hasn't been taught to us. We do a lot of the things that we do, we're employing our algebra, geometry, and so on, but we just don't recognize it. It's even in a lot of our common slang, you know. Square business. What does square business mean? If somebody say it's square business, that means we're equal, you know, because a square is a quadrilateral with 4 equal sides. Nobody's getting over on anybody. It's a fair trade, never a robbery, right? We're on the same page. We good. When you settle your differences, A difference is the term used to describe the result of a subtraction. When subtraction takes place, you settle your differences. That means that, you know, there's no difference. You know, it's like, okay, we have a disagreement. I'm over here. If I quantify my position, you quantify your position. My position might be 85. Your position might be 72. We have a difference. 85 minus 72, right? That's a 13 unit or a 13-point difference. We need to settle our differences. We need to sit down like men and have this conversation so we can be on the same page. Either I come down toward you, you come up to me, or, you know, we settle our differences. Just like when somebody says, what difference do it make? That's a mathematical question.
Yes,
what
sir.
difference do it make?
Right.
The difference, somebody saying there's no difference. The difference is 0. It's like, we could go this way, we're going to travel 15 miles. But we can go that way, we're still going to travel 15 miles. So somebody saying, well, what difference do it make? The distance is the same. Well, the distance is the same, so there's a difference of 0. What difference do it make? So, you know, and we do these things all the time, like crossing the street, you know, distance, rate, time formula. If it's a car coming, do I have enough time to get across the street without getting hit by this car and killed? Or if I'm in traffic, I'm about to switch lanes. The car in the next lane that's behind me, I'm looking in my side view mirror, I'm seeing where it's at. Looking in my rear view mirror, seeing where the car is at. I'm judging the speed of the car. That's the distance, rate, time formula. We're using that, right? Distance is equal to rate of speed times the time. Do I have time to get over into the next lane, right? How far away is that car? What's the distance? What's the rate of speed of that car? How fast are they going? These are things we do all the time, you know? And since we're on that point, I want to say this too. I want people to really key in on this. You'll see this floating around the internet all the time. This joke, right? Another day went by, I still haven't used y equals mx plus b. There's so many reasons, so many ways that we can apply y equals mx plus b. One is this. When you think about y equals mx plus b, or really any function, that's an example of one of the functions. That just happens to be one of the more popular ones, right? With a rate of change is constant, right? We're dealing with input and output, right? It's like a machine, right? Put some raw some raw cookies in the oven, right? That's the input. The raw cookies. The output is the cooked cookies. And the cookies are done. The baked cookies, I should say, right? Input and output. When we look at our society, you see a video of some black people fighting in a Popeyes restaurant or something. Or black people fighting in a Wendy's restaurant. We often are conditioned to just focus on the output. Look, see, them black people go, you know, people being quote unquote niggas again, right? We're only focused on the output. We never focus on the input. The input is the X variable. The output is the Y variable. But the input determines the output.
Right.
So so many of us never even look at, well, what are the societal conditions? Right. What are the environmental factors? How were these people trained? These people were trained and conditioned to think that is acceptable and appropriate behavior. So you never indict the actual. These are things that Amos Wilson talked about extensively. Dr. John Henrik Clarke talked about extensively. Kwame Ture talked about extensively. All these things. The math shows you, you gotta, if you don't just focus on the output, you have to focus on the input. And if we're talking about y equals mx plus b, not only are we focusing on the x variable or the input, but we got to talk about where we starting from. That's the y-intercept. What's the starting point? Right? What's the starting point? That's when, I think about this when I think about these white folks talking about, well, slavery was 300 years ago. What y'all still complaining for? This and that. Like, bro, what was our starting point?
Right.
We didn't start at the same place. Y'all had affirmative act. Y'all had a Homestead Act, 1862. They took land from the indigenous people and gave it to y'all. We didn't get land like that. Right. We didn't get the GI Bill or nothing. All this stuff. So again, the mathematical formulas exposes all of this, right? It exposes all of this, and that's why, like, with teaching the math, we can also teach the political science at the same time, because the mathematical formulas model and reflect the political realities and the social science realities, right? And it can help for young people. And we teach this to the young people, so the young people understand where they live at, and understand, like, what they're engrossed in, But there's so much mathematics that's among us that we may not really recognize because nobody told us. Like, no, that's you're being mathematical right now. You're using math right now. That's algebra. That's using. When somebody say something like I tell people all the time, one of the main purposes of mathematics is to find the truth.
Right.
We're looking for the truth. We solve an equation. We come up with an answer. We say, okay, x equals 5. If that's a true statement, in order for me to know if that's correct, that has to give me a true statement. Correct answers give true statements. Mm-hmm. Incorrect answers give lies.
Right.
Just like in a situation with a person, you lying to me right now, because that don't add up. Don't add up. That's not square business. You lying to me right now. But think about, so this is the benefit of, we live in a society where government entities, corporate entities, individuals, they benefit from being able to take advantage and exploit and oppress people. Mm-hmm. So it benefits them if we're unable to know when they're playing in our face.
For sure.
With mathematics as a tool, it is very difficult. It's very difficult to play in somebody's face that is proficient at mathematics. It's very difficult.
Very true.
And that's why it's nothing coincidental about so many people saying I was never good at math. I can't do math. I hate math. It's a psyops. It's a plot.
Yeah. Your rationality is questioned. Yeah.
Yeah. Our brother has a quick comment or a question. We're enjoying these gems, though, bro.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the gems for real. What I would because anybody who knows about me and the different things that we've shared on this program, and even I have a program on Monday called Ptah Shakur Speaks as well, is that I firmly believe that we're living in a really crucial time where we're seeing a death of a lot of systems, financial systems, educational systems, political systems, and things of that nature. So I'm a big proponent of getting the youth. I believe the youth that are walking around on the face of this earth right now are some of the most powerful souls that have ever existed, that are reincarnated at this time. And so this is the time for new. And so I've been racking my brain to actually start the foundation of a new educational system. That's why I'm really, really, and I will be following up on you as well. We're going to communicate back and forth as far as with this Common Core math, because like you said, this is very, very urgent. Not only to the point where AI taking some of these, all of the labor positions, but even this man who rules this world currently is looking to go out into space and explore to other realms and things of that nature. So that's definitely we gotta get our youth on track. To be able to absorb math, and for the purpose that you said, for problem solving. And this is one of the things when I was a youth education director, it's called Ad Astra Conundrum. And I just kind of want to throw this out to everybody listening at home and as well as yourself. It deals with problem solving. And that's one of the things that our youth, it seems like the world that they're going to be inheriting is a world where it needs a whole lot of problem solving. And so I'm really, really thankful for that idea, and I'm all on board for that. But I did have a quick question for you, though, because it's like Shareef was asking, some of our teachers are improperly teaching math to our youth? And you did kind of elaborate. You said when they're going through their schooling, that more mathematical classes and being aware of the whole spectrum of math would actually help. What percentage of Common Core math is that entwined in with these teachers? I'm asking for if a teacher's listening right now, a young person coming out of college or whatever, and they want to be that solution. They want to be that person to help, be a proper, math educator. What would you say for them? What would they would need to have? They would need to have that Common Core math kind of grow up with it, or something that they should. Is this being taught in their schooling? I guess is my question.
So most school districts across the country are using the Common Core math curriculum.
Most of them. Okay.
It's just a different approach. It's like a modification of the way many school districts were teaching math maybe 30 years ago, 25 years ago.
Okay.
But like I said, it provides a conceptual understanding.
Right.
It provides alternative methods. Right. And one thing that comes to mind is that there are people that will make the complaint that, why they got to do it like this.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, I say, why not? And because that's an emotional response to the mathematics. Because and think about how many things that we're involved in life, where if we're given an alternative, right, or given an option, we embrace the option. We look forward to it. We feel like that's a privilege to have. But here it is with mathematics. Like now it's like, okay, with this different, type of curriculum where they're saying, okay, well, instead of just the standard algorithm for multiplication, we're also going to teach your child the lattice method. We're also going to teach your child the grid method. We're also going to teach your child area models for multiplication. We're going to teach your child just different ways of doing it. And the fact that there's pushback just shows that's a deep-seated programming that a lot of people have received, where they have a negative disposition and a fear of the mathematics, because that's fear talking.
I think they might be scared of the new too. Like I said, we're living in that change. It's time to let the dead be dead and embrace life. And then the more we hold on to it, the more problems we
cause. It's not even about getting rid of the previous methods that you learned 30 years ago. That method still works as well.
True.
But it can be coupled with some different methods. And actually, when you learn the different methods, oftentimes these different methods serve as an explanation to why the method that you learned 30 years ago actually works and makes sense.
Yes,
that's
sir.
how long division is. You think about long division. There's a method of division that's taught now called partial quotients. Child may see that in the 4th grade. They see it in the 3rd grade, partial quotients method. And it also teaches you how to do, how to divide large numbers mentally, right? Because you basically just, you break up a division problem. That's why it's called partial quotients, because you break up a division problem into 2 separate division problems. Gotcha. Maybe 3 separate division problems. Yeah. And then you take those quotients, those partial quotients, add them together. Mm-hmm. That's your final quotient. Something like doing, 25 divided by 4, right? 25 divided by 4. I know 25 is not divisible by 4.
Right.
So I kick it the partial quotients way. I know that a number less than 25 that is divisible by 4 is 24. So I break 25 down into 24 plus 1. And then I do 24 divided by 4, and I do 1 divided by 4. I know 24 divided by 4 is 6. And 1 divided by 4, I could leave it as a fraction, a fourth, or a quarter, or I could break it into a decimal, 0.25. So I know 25 divided by 4 is 6 plus 0.25, 6.25. That's the partial quotients method. And you could do it with large numbers, like 8,942 divided by 36, right? I would do that on paper or on a board. I've done it on my YouTube channel as one of my videos, so that, along with like knowing how to do that, but also knowing long division, it empowers you.
For sure.
Right? But the way and that's why conversations like this are so important, because we're having positive conversations around math. Because since people have been fed a consistent diet of negativity about mathematics, when somebody's trying to give you another way of problem solving, we actually balk at it and want to fight them and want to push back on it. That's a sinister programming that we've been subjected to. That's what that is. That's a sinister programming. Because imagine I tell you, okay, I'm going to show you some different ways of cooking food, right? So you don't got to cook, you don't got to eat the same meal every day, 365 days a year. You would love that if you were a person that used to say, well, maybe you're accustomed to it, so maybe you wouldn't care. But, you know, for a lot of people, they say, wow, okay, wow, you mean I don't have to eat the same thing every day for 365 days a year? Okay, you're going to teach me some different ways, different types of food to eat, different ways to cook the food. We would embrace that under normal circumstances.
Right.
But this is why this is abnormal. This whole, like, the way we view math, the way we look at math, because they understand, like, math is about problem solving.
Yeah.
And I mentioned Amos Wilson earlier. One of the things that, one of my major takeaways from Amos Wilson is him saying that the problems of the black community are a multi-billion-dollar industry. So our problems at all costs must be maintained. Because once we are able to solve our problems, now those that are profiting from our problems lose their profit center. The black community the problems of the black community are what we call a profit center. But if we learn how to solve our problems, and I argue that mathematics is the single greatest tool for developing problem-solving ability. So imagine if all the millions of black people in the black community that say they hate math, that say they scared of math, that say they think math is futile and irrelevant. Imagine that they thought it was beneficial, it was a beneficial tool. They embraced it, and as a result, and a byproduct, they become problem solvers, and then we start solving problems, not just in other people's communities, but we start solving problems in our own community. All that money goes away.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think this is very much intentional. There's nothing coincidental or accidental about it. You know, like AZ said on Illmatic with Nas. You know, nothing coincidental or accidental. But you know, the work has to be done to change the minds of our people, because the math itself, the content is not that difficult. The hard part with adults, teenagers, not so much with the young people. We kind of gotta protect the young people and prevent them from getting to the point where they start to inherit those feelings about mathematics.
Yeah.
But we also should do some work with the adults to try to get them to shift their mindset, right? Because once they could change their mindset and become open to, you know, the possibility that they could learn it, they could excel at it. That's really all it takes. Because once you have people that like really know the mathematics, that can explain it and break it down, that's the easy part.
Yeah, that's why
right?
What you're saying is like a hand fitting into the glove. You know, this is exactly what we kind of promote here on this program as far as problem solving. We're not ones that kind of sit around and talk about problems and expect nothing to be done. And so definitely mathematics. And, you know, and I'm kind of picking up a little, I don't know how old you are, but you mentioned about Nas and twice already you said some Wu-Tang stuff. You said about some mathematics. You said some stuff that RZA actually shared. So that's how my love for mathematics came from listening, not only from school, but relating that in a mathematical way, things you can apply on the streets and as far as in the form of problem solving. But for everybody who's listening at home right now, it's 8:58, so in about 2 minutes or so, we're going to shut off from the White Rose Community Channel. But if you're watching on Facebook, we're going to continue on as well. If you do want to call in and add to the conversation, the number is 717-846-5067. We're here with the wonderful educator, Mr. Akil, educator in all this math. And then before we leave out, we'll make sure that we get all your Facebook and things of that nature so we can help promote your channel. YouTube channel, just wonderful, teaching our youth Common Core math, different ways of utilizing math, different principles, because this is very, very important. It's something that we made the relationship between problems in our community and our relationship to math in our community are very much connected. And so, and it's not by accident. We all understand that there's puppet masters, there's elements that exist, shall I say, that want to make sure that this is an uneven player field for our youth that are in the inner city to gather this information. But for those that are adults, if you're over the age of 30, you know, you're pretty much somewhat aware of what's going on in the conditions of our economic educational system. And we can't blame the school board too much. We can't blame whoever's sitting in that West Wing, the right wing, wherever in the White House. We can't blame any of them. It's up to us. So if any of this information hits you and it brings to mind the urgency that our youth really need us, particularly if you're listening from the inner city community, whether you're black, brown, or whatever, there's individuals that have been put on the back seat and therefore we'll be looking on the backs of robots, AI, or whatever, and we want our youth to have the greatest of success and the abundance of the riches and luxuries of life. And so we have to do something at this particular time and make that sacrifice for our youth to experience, much like the individuals in our civil rights era sacrificed so much to plant these seeds in the ground for a tree that they knew that they was not going to enjoy the fruitage nor the shade in that. So we'd like to thank our wonderful guest, like I said, Akil Parker. So we're going to continue on it a little bit more. You can feel free to call in 717-846-5067. Here you go, bro.
Yes, brother. Quick question for you. What resources are out there for the parents to be educators to their children so they're more equipped in the school system?
I love that question. There's many, but two that I definitely want to highlight is two resources that I've created. The All This Math YouTube channel, which I mentioned earlier, but I'll reiterate. Over almost 900 videos ranging from arithmetic up to calculus 1. And I'm very big on being culturally relevant, right? And also most of the videos are infused with Black history content, because the YouTube channel models how my classrooms function, how my classrooms are set up. Because inevitably, in my 20-year teaching career, I was always a math teacher on paper, but inevitably every year there were students that would say, "Mr. Parker, you should have been an African American history teacher," because we was talking about African American history, etc. in that geometry class, in that algebra 1 class, in that statistics class, in that calculus class, in that SAT prep class, whatever, right? So you're going to get all that, right? And for those of you that are concerned about the fact that there's a lack of Black teachers in your child's school, or a lack of Black male teachers in your child's school, or a lack of Black male math teachers in your child's school, here you have it. This is your representation. Also for parents, one of the things I do is I make video content along with my own children, right? Because I'm a math teacher, I'm a math professor, I'm a mathematician, but I'm a father first. And one of my responsibilities as a father is to educate my children. So oftentimes what I'll do is I'll say, well, I need to teach my daughter this skill, how to calculate a tip when we go out to eat at a restaurant, how to work with the percentage, how to do the numbers, right? And I say, let's record this, because I know there's other people that could benefit from this lesson as well. So I'm essentially showing on the YouTube channel how to teach your child the same way that a math teacher, math professor, mathematician teaches their child. Because I know for a fact that most people, if not all people, if they meet a child and that child tells them, yeah, my dad's a math teacher, the first thing they're going to assume about that child is that child is excellent at mathematics. And my children are excellent at mathematics. So what I do on the channel is to show you how the methods that I use, and this is how I taught my children. These are the methods. Also, the book that I published, How to Use All This Math, Volume 1, which is available on Amazon. It's a book that has 20 chapters, 20 relatively short chapters. Each of the chapters is a different activity, right? I show people how, just in their everyday daily activities that they're doing on a regular basis, whether it's going to the kitchen to get a snack, riding in the car, taking a ride somewhere, going to run some errands, going into the grocery store, in those different activities, I'm showing you how you can take that activity and make it into an algebra lesson, an arithmetic lesson, a geometry lesson. I'm showing you how to do it, right? From the perspective of a math teacher that's been immersed in math and been really doing this for 20 years as a professional, and then even before that as a student, right? So that's what the book does, right? Because I'm all about having children be prepared for a math class.
And what's the name of that book again?
It's called How to Use All This Math.
Okay.
Volume 1. Volume 1, because Volume 2 will be out this year. Because there's so many examples. Volume 1 only has 20 different examples in it. Volume 2 will have 20 more. And then Volume 3 will have 20 more.
Yes, sir.
And
there may be a Volume 4 at some point.
And when you put all this math, do you run that all together, or is it separate?
I use separate words. All This Math.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's the name of the YouTube channel. The book, How to Use All This Math, Volume 1. All the social media is All This Math. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Okay.
as well as the website is allthismath.com. So, we also offer, virtual tutoring as well. So if anyone's interested in virtual tutoring, you can go to the website, allthismath.com, and there's a contact us tab. They can click on the contact us tab and just, provide some minimal information, and, we'll be in touch. Because the thing is, like, the black community is not above criticism. No community is above criticism. But what I want, two things I'll say about that. There's a difference between constructive criticism and destructive criticism. I don't like destructive criticism. That's for people that hate black people. And a lot of times you got black people that hate black people that they want to provide destructive criticism under the guise of I'm just being honest, or I'm just keeping it real, or I'm trying to help. It's like, no, you're not trying to help. That's destructive criticism. That's not meant to benefit them and uplift them. That's not meant to help them, advance themselves, right? Also, I'm a big advocate for matching up criticism with resources. Because a lot, it sounds real nice and great to tell people, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, and black parents, y'all need to do this, y'all need to do that. Right. Well, I'm like, bro, well, show me how, right? Because people do the best they can with the resources that they have. Unfortunately, some people have limited resources. So in addition to just telling people, okay, you need to do better, you need to do this, your kids need to be here, your kids need to be doing that. Show people how to do it. So I'm all about showing the resources, creating resources. So it's like, boom, I'm going to tell you, yes, your children should be at least at grade level, and then you want your children to go beyond grade level. How can I do that? All right, as long as you got Wi-Fi, you can tune into my YouTube channel. I got, the video edition is ongoing. It's an ongoing thing, right? So much content on there. It's a wonder that it's free. It probably won't be free all forever. It's not going to be free forever. Yes, sir. But now it's free, right? So, but it's a resource, right? Because I want our people to win. Because I'm not a rugged individualist. I want to be part of a strong team. I want my team to be strong. So I need for the black community to be strong. I can't escape the black community. I don't want to. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't, right? But I want the team to be strong. I want the group to be strong. So the group we need to be problem solvers. We need to have critical thinking ability. We need to have analytical reasoning skills, right? All things that math can bring you, right? And we need to be able to we need to be able to create our own jobs for our children, but we also need to be able to compete for those STEM jobs. We need to be able to compete for those, and you need a strong math background. I've been in community with some people that in the Philadelphia area that are trying to do some work around increasing the number of STEM educators of color, right? And what I realized is that, the best way to do that is to make sure people have a solid foundation in mathematics at a young age. Because once you have a solid foundation in mathematics at a young age, and then you progress and you continue to develop your mathematical prowess and ability, then STEM becomes an option. And then you can say, oh, you know what? I think I will be an engineer. I think I am going to study computer science. I think I might want to be a doctor, right? I might want to be a registered nurse, right? We understand there's so many people that will never even consider some of those professions that I just mentioned because of a fear of mathematics and a deficiency in mathematics. Because they know mathematics is that gatekeeper. Mathematics is like the bouncer at the club. You cannot get in to certain fields and certain activities and certain career paths. You must be strong in mathematics. So the best thing you can do, and it doesn't mean that children should go into the liberal arts. It doesn't mean that people, not children, but young adults, it doesn't mean they shouldn't study the liberal arts. But a lot of people go into social work as an example, not because they necessarily always wanted to go into social work, but because they feel like, well, I need a job, and this is what I feel is the only thing that's left to me, right? I think people should go into fields because they really want to go into those fields, not because they feel like that's all that's left to me. I want for our children to be able to say, you know what? I could do any major at this college. I could study anything, and I could excel at it. But so many young people, they don't operate from that space. They operate from a space of, all right, I hated math. I never liked it. So, boom, let me look for the major that requires the least amount of math coursework. And that's what I'm going to sign up for.
Our brother has a quick question for you, and we're going to get ready to wrap up.
Got a math Got a math problem here for you. We have a comment on the Facebook page. Miss Dolores, she's asking, do you have these particular resources in Spanish?
In Spanish, at this time, I do not, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, I told her I'll ask, but yeah, that's something to consider there.
And as we wrap up, my brother, as we talked about earlier, I don't know what the statistics, so to speak, is in your area, but here it's a huge problem with reading. How can we address that before we get to the math? Because if you don't know how to read or are efficient in reading, how are you going to be efficient in math? I know you specialize in math, but what about the reading deficiency as we wrap up?
So I think it has to be addressed simultaneously. I think it's got to be addressed simultaneously. One of the things as parents we can do is, well, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, we have to start reading books ourselves. We got to start reading books ourselves. We have to let our children see us reading books and lead by example. And, we have to make reading a normal part of our existence. And I don't even mean audiobooks. Audiobooks are cool, but we have to create time for just sitting down at a table, at a desk, in a chair somewhere with an actual book. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we got to do. We got to create the time for that. We got to make that happen. It's mandatory. It's a non-negotiable. And we have to read, complex texts, because when the children get to the math word problems, they experience cognitive overload and inundation. Right? So many children, when they see the standardized test, they see the word problem on the standardized test, they look at it, it's a paragraph, they don't even read it. They're scared of it. Like, I'm not doing it. Not even looking at that. Right? So we have to make reading a part of our existence, our regular existence. And we have to, and as adults, we can't just tell the children to do it. We can't just try to create programming for the children, send them to the programming. They need to see us reading. So we got to turn the TV off. We got to put our phones down, right? We got to do it. We got to do all that.
Yes.
That's what has to happen.
And as we wrap up, you made a very important point a couple minutes ago about it's been the theme of this interview. It's about our fear. I'm by trade a therapist, and I love what I do, but I'm not going to lie. I got to be straight up. I picked that years ago because it had the least amount of math, and then I grew into loving it, but that isn't why I initially picked it, if I'm honest. Such a crucial point and a truthful point. I've lived,
and you're not unique. And brother, like, don't feel bad. You're not unique in that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is a design. There's a design for that, because think about how many people run from the math because of how they've been conditioned to run from the math.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a conditioning process. It's social engineering.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's social engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does, again, it's about maintaining certain labor dynamics, because the moment that a child starts to say, math is too difficult, the math is irrelevant, I don't need this in life, you're not going to apply yourself as it pertains to the mathematics. You may even get good grades in it, but you're just trying to get the grade. You're not really trying to learn it. And most likely, you're going to try to avoid it in the future, right? You're going to try to avoid it in the future. And so you're not going into the STEM disciplines, right? You're not going into that, right? So the people that are comfortable with math, that embrace it, run towards it, the people that have been conditioned to believe that they have ownership of math, the people that believe that, no, this is my people do math, right? That belief, they've been propagandized that in a different way. Now they have less competition, because there's literally millions of black kids that they don't have to compete with, because the black kids already have been programmed to disqualify themselves from competition, because they've been programmed to think based on as a product or a result of their education. Because it's not as if, I don't want people to misconstrue this. It's not as if black people single-handedly, again, we talked about input and output before, right? Yep. There's still an input, right? There's still an environment. There's still a certain type of instructional practice, right? There's a y-intercept. There's a beginning point that we're at, right? The schools are set up a certain way, right? So that we will disqualify ourselves, right? And then those that are in control can act as if they did not impact this. It's a hustle. It's all a big scam, right? But again, so it's meant to work this way so that certain groups will not have the competition, because then they don't got to compete with all these millions of black. Because damn, I don't got to compete with these black kids for these engineering jobs. I don't got to compete with these black kids for these computer science jobs, or I don't got to compete for these spots in medical school because they scared of math. I don't got to worry about them. I want to. Oh yeah, we about to be architects. We don't got to worry about them black folks, them black kids over there, because they scared of math. So they're not even going to try to be an architect. It's all a setup. And that's the conversation. And that's why, again, I appreciate you two brothers for bringing me on your platform, because these are the conversations that we have to have. And we also have to have, conversations about, like, okay, the work that needs to be done. We got to just, roll up our sleeves and help some kids with math, like, every day, right? And this is why I have the resources. So if anybody wants to roll up their sleeves and help some children with math, if you say, okay, well, I would like to do that, but I don't really know the math, boom, I got a YouTube channel for you. Bro, sis, whoever, I got a YouTube channel for you. Go on the YouTube channel, all this math. When you find out what homework that child has, find out what the topic is, go into one of my playlists, look up that topic. I probably have a video on it. It's almost 900 videos on the channel as at this time of this interview. So it's all about the resources. Got to provide the resources.
I appreciate you, bro, and we definitely gotta have you back. And me and my brother, we are thinking about taking the Hour Power on the road. God willing, I would like to set up a time where we could come to Philly and interact with you. I don't know if we would be able to come to your school or meet somewhere else, but I definitely want to vibe with you on this, importance of math, if we can make that happen.
Okay. Yeah, let's definitely talk, man. I'm open to that.
Okay, bro. Well, this is Brother Shareef and Ptah Shakur with the Hour Power with our wonderful guest. This video will be available on my Facebook page right after we end the video, and then Brother Ptah, the producer, I think he's going to work on putting it on YouTube very soon. In the next 24 hours, God willing. And then, because some of our elder viewers aren't always on Facebook, and I want to make this available in other videos too, as much as possible on YouTube, because almost everyone has YouTube. As long as you got the internet, you can get on YouTube, but not everyone has Facebook. So thank you so much, my brother. Keep doing what you do. It's more than important, and we'll connect with you soon.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Peace.
Peace, brother.